Coming up on the Two Bros Music Podcast, episode 2, we get into a little bit of the recording on how we did our first track, Self Trepanation, and talk about our equipment that we use. And then later, we introduce our new segment, Turn It Up, and we go over some crust of the 80s for you. So stay tuned. Hello. Hey, welcome back to the Two Bros Music Podcast. I'm Joe.
And I'm Adam.
There we go. And we're back for do you another episode here. Kind of what we wanted to do today is get into that track that we put out, Self Trepanation, kind of get into our equipment that we use and what we use to record, give you a little background on that, and then we can get into that topic. So you want to start with like what kind of guitar you use, amps or whatever?
With that, basically I tracked that with a Schecter Triple X with EMG pickups, active pickups. I track through Kemper profiler with a 5150 profile. Then I did several tracks. Usually do 4 tracks, double track left, right, and then do a different tone, double track left, right. So I tweak up the tones a little bit. We did all the layers of vocals, drums, Joe, you did.
Yeah.
MIDI. And then I took the MIDI and then through Superior Drummer, turned that into, the best tone for the song when you mix it.
Now, the original track that you sent me with the guitar, just the basic guitar.
Yeah.
You use your Schecter on that one?
Yeah. Those were, I ended up re-recording the guitars from what I originally sent you. So that was all redone.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I use a UA interface for Universal Audio Apollo Quad 2. And that has 8 tracks in, 8 tracks out, and that's more than enough because we're not recording live drums. You need that stuff when you have drums, but
yeah,
recording guitars, vocals, stuff like that, you really don't need a whole lot of tracks. And then you could do one at a time and just go up to the limit of your DAW. And so the DAW I'm using is Pro Tools, and DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation.
Yeah.
And they're all nowadays, I know I'm using Pro Tools and people kind of frown on that. Oh, you don't have to use it. No, you don't. They're all pretty much the same nowadays. Pro Tools was the original and it was the industry standard and still kind of is, but people use Logic, people use Reaper, people use Cubase. They're all comparable. So Ableton, yeah. But I think that's more like house music and stuff.
Yeah.
Like recording musicians, you can use it, but I think most recording musicians don't use that, but you can. So I've tried to use it. It came free with a keyboard I bought, and I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, they give that out with a lot of equipment because I got it with my little Scarlett audio interface that I bought.
Yeah.
And it's like what do you call it? I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So in the drums I'm using, I got an electronic drum set. It's the Roland TD17 KVX, all these numbers. But it's basically a 5-piece mesh head drum set. And I like it because in my townhome, it's less noise than an acoustic set. Although I haven't played an acoustic set since I got rid of my original Tama set back in the early 2000s. About 2005, I got rid of that one.
Yeah.
And then I bought, when I moved back here, I bought a Yamaha. This is an older Yamaha electronic set, and I use that for practicing. And then when I bought the townhouse, I bought the new Roland kit. And then what I'm using on my end for recording is I have an iMac, which I plan on switching out for one of those new M1 Mac Minis because it's just newer. It's going to be faster. And I'm running Logic Pro X, whatever, just Logic. And then I didn't buy Superior Drummer, but I bought Easy Drummer, which is like the baby brother of Superior Drummer.
Yeah, it's Sam Tune Tracks is the parent company. And same,
And
yeah.
so and then I bought a couple of metal drum packs, and then Adam's got a couple of the same ones. So when I send him over my MIDI tracks, he's got basically the same drums on his end to put it back in the way I had recorded it. So
Yeah, and that's the thing with technology nowadays. You don't have to worry about it. All that work is done for you. Yeah, you can do it and mic up your drums, and it's good to do. But well, Joe, you're in New Mexico and I'm in California, like we said last time.
yeah,
But we're not down the street from each other no more, so
yeah,
we
we're
can't.
not even in the same room.
Yeah, it's not an option. So, but with the technology now, it sounds great. That stuff sounds.
And for recording, I like the electronic drums because you don't have to have all these mics set up. You know, just boom,
Yeah.
one straight into the interface into the computer, and then you get all your. And then I recorded in MIDI, and then sent you that data, so that way you can, when you're editing and shit, you can manipulate it on your end if you needed to.
Yeah, like if that snare's not cutting through, I can go pull a different snare, put it in there. This is going to cut through the mix. So yeah, it gives you more options.
Yeah.
And why not use the technology we have? It some codgers, some old fuddy duddies. Yeah, oh, I don't want to use that. I want to keep it the way. Well, you know what? Times change, and it's the way of the future. Everybody's doing it. So.
And speaking of old codgers, we're gonna introduce a new segment called "Turn It Up" at the end of this episode. Kind of reliving our heyday, whatever. But yeah, so basically, you sent me the basic guitar tracks, and then I recorded the drums. Well, I wrote drums. It took like a month and a half on my end on the drums, and then when I had something that I was happy with, I recorded different takes. I think I sent you about 10 altogether.
Yeah, it's something like that.
And then you needed a few more even. And then so I ended up that next weekend recording a few more takes, and I sent you all that. And then it was your mess to handle from there.
Yeah, that's the thing though. But I mean, that happens with recording all the time. Like,
yeah,
you track everybody, and then you got the edit stage is next, and you say, hey, this was in a little tight here, or there, you notice a flub that you didn't notice when you tracked it originally. So that stuff all gets fixed in the edit, and then you clean up guitars, clean up squeals, dead space, vocals, clean up sometimes breath. Because once you put those compressors on, every little breath comes out and gets bigger than it normally would be. So there's all this stuff that right after you're done tracking, the next step is editing. Once you edit all the tracks, then you go to mixing. So.
Now on the tracks, when I sent it back to you, you worked on the drums. But then you said you redid the guitars, right?
Yeah, retract them because those
retract the guitars, and then what other tracks did you put after that?
That's when I did everything else. Did the bass, retract. Like I said, I quad tracked the guitars. I don't remember. Is there a solo on that one?
Yeah, there's a solo.
I haven't listened now in a while. I don't even remember. I wrote the solo, and I don't even remember that now. Yeah. So quad track the guitars over rhythms. Solo. There was another one or two tracks maybe there because it might have been layers for harmony or double layering apart.
Yeah.
So there's that.
You put some keys on there?
Keyboards, not a lot though on this one. I put a little bit in there, subtly, so you almost don't notice it. But if you know to listen to it and you put headphones on, you can hear stuff like that. And if you listen to a lot of mixes, that's what's going on nowadays. Yeah. All the little stuff that just barely in there, that adds up and makes it bigger,
Yeah, it makes it full.
makes it real full.
And then like how did you do the boom? There's like sonic booms in there.
Then you do, when you're mixing, then you do, okay, get your levels, get everything leveled out. Then add all your compression and your snare, your EQing. And after that, then you do like little effects. Now you gotta juice up the song. You gotta add, when you're coming to that chorus, it needs to punch, it needs to hit. So then you can add little sound effects. I remember hearing a story about Judas Priest. What song was it? I think it's Metal Gods.
Uh-huh.
And they were looking for some sound effect in the background, and they went in the kitchen and got a whole thing of the spoons and knives and forks and just dropped them on the floor and recorded that. And that's now become like a staple in recording. You always put different sound effects in there. Metallica recording the Black Album, and they had a table full of stuff with guns, bells, tambourines, whatever, just extra stuff to put in there. So that was just an extra thing that I have. It's just a subwoofer, a sub boom.
Uh-huh.
Put that in there. And then along with like breaking glass and stuff like that, just to give that punch.
Yeah.
That, it's like an accent on here we go. Boom, it opens up. There's the chorus. It's got to hit harder than the verse. So.
And what's cool is you could do all this like in your home recording studio.
Oh yeah.
Well, I remember back when we had the band, like we had that little 4-track that we used. And then I ended up, when we were recording the demo, I ended up going out and buying the Mackie mixer, small little Mackie mixer, so we'd have more channels to run into the 4-track that we had.
Well, there's a lot of guys, even pros, that still have their old 4-tracks. And what we were doing was what everybody used to do. You do your 4 tracks on your mixer, then you mix them down to like 1 stereo track. Then you move down to 1 track, and then you add more tracks, move them down to 2 tracks, and you just get your 4 tracks by you keep layering it. That's just how everybody had to do it in the day. Now it's like there was that or going to a big multi-million-dollar studio.
Yeah.
To record our first demo, I have a friend out here that used to work at Fantasy Studios, which is no longer there. But that's the studio where Santana recorded the Supernatural album on. Yeah. And my friend was giving me a tour through there, and he goes, "Hey, I'm going to show you something, but you can't touch anything in here." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Santana's in here recording a new album, and he's got all his guitars and stuff, but he wasn't there that day." Uh-huh. So he unlocked the door. We went into that studio, checked out his rig, his guitars, and I'm like, "Whoa, that's cool." And at the time, Santana was kind of like over. There was, back in the day, back in the 60s, 70s, was the last time he did anything that was of note.
Yeah.
But little did we know that album was going to be huge. And I got to see his rig, his setup there. And that's how you had to do it back in the day. $1 million studios,
Well, that's where CCR recorded their stuff.
There at Fantasy?
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I probably should have did some research so I could have dropped some other bands. But yeah, I'm sure if you look it up, Fantasy Studios, it was a big studio.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of Bay Area people recorded there.
I've been through there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, all right. So basically you layered the tracks, and then you went and you mixed it all, right?
Yeah. And now for a lot of people, like, I don't know if it's only musicians listen to this or it'll be normal people, whatever, that don't play. Mixing, this is a thing that a lot of people don't get. Say you record drums, let's say drums are 8 tracks. They could be a lot more than that. Then you do, like I said, 4 guitars, let's say two more for the solos. So that's 6. So now we're at like 14 tracks. Then you do layers upon layers of vocals, keyboards. So let's say by the time it's all said and done, you've done like 40 to 50 tracks. Yeah. Now, what mixing is taking all those, say 50 tracks down to 2.
Yeah,
bouncing them down to left and right. So what's the big problem is they're all fighting for the same space because a lot of the instruments and a lot of the channels, the tracks are using a lot of same frequencies, and it's mostly what they call the mids, and the mids are from like 500 hertz to like 6,000 hertz. Roughly, they're around there. I mean, if I might be wrong, somebody's gonna be like, "You're wrong. It's this," but they're around that. That's around where your mids are. Your low mids, your middle mids, and your high mids. And then anything under that is lows. Anything over that is your highs. So you got to get everything. And the most dynamic instrument of all of them is the drums, because the drums covers the whole spectrum from your lows all the way to your highs with the cymbals.
Yeah.
That's a beast. Trying to get that tamed. And now the way we did it, of course, a lot of that, the heavy lifting's done for us, but I still mix them individually, like mix the snare, mix the kick, and then bring it all together and start stacking it. So,
yeah.
But that's just for if you don't know, people don't know what mixing is, and it's taking all of that down to two tracks, left and right stereo.
So it's basically you're throwing all these tracks together to make everything sound full, and then you're bouncing everything down because you go bounce it down to 2 tracks.
Yeah, then when you master it after that, and then that's when you're really bouncing it to the full. You bounce it after the mix to stereo, but then the mastering gets everything leveled, makes it really sound,
Tight.
Tight. Get the volume up. So,
Cool.
Yeah, and that's what we did on that one, our first one.
So okay, and then how many tracks did you use for the vocals? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I could pull it up, but it's probably gonna take me like 10 minutes to.
Oh yeah, no.
Because that was a pretty big file. I probably off the top of my head, probably about 10.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times what I'll do is you can do, say, 1 track for your verse and your choruses. But I don't like to do that because if your verse bleed or your chorus goes over, like you're doing some yell or you're singing something out, you don't want it to cut off right there, boom, and you got to get back to the verse, or vice versa, either other way.
Yeah.
So I like to do, okay, here's the verse tracks and then do chorus tracks. So that way you could do the bleed over and you can layer them. And a lot of times with vocals, you do your main line, then you do your backup lines. Like my standard, what I'll usually do is my main vocal line, and then I'll record it 2 more times, and then I'll pan it 1 hard left, 1 hard right, so that you get more of that stereo effect and it sounds bigger. And then from there, I'll work on maybe a harmony parts. Verses, I don't do that so much because you want it to thin out. And then at the choruses, it's where you want really all the layers. So that's where it gets layered. You do a harmony, you might add another harmony.
Now, for the harmony, you just add more tracks, or do you do it like in the software?
No, you
Like
got to track it.
process.
I guess you could, but I don't know how to do that without sounding G's. So I don't know any way to do that. Yeah, it's best to just get whoever's singing
Yeah.
a layer upon themselves, because one, the person singing is going to have a perfect timing. You know what though? I guess you can. No, that's wrong. I guess I was wrong when I said I didn't know how you could. You can pitch shift stuff, so you can take a track, and this is done, in pop music.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah, they
pitch
do it a lot in that.
Yeah, and then but what you do, it's a perfect pitch shift of that track.
Yeah.
So it sits right in there, right? But I don't know. I like to keep it, track it myself. If I can't do it, then don't do it.
And actually, that's harder though, right?
Oh yeah.
To layer in the tracks like that, because you got to get the pitch just right.
Yeah. When you get a sound in your head, okay, this is how I want to sing this line. And then like, say you do that on a verse. Well, you're going to have the second verse. Well, it was like right before the chorus, I'd add some extra layers. Okay. Well, now I need that same harmony on a different line. That's a little hard, but the more you do it, it's not that bad. You got to go back to that first verse. What was the harmony for this track? all right, now I got to do that again with a different line. So
and then if you're doing it on different days, your different state of mind. So all that kind of plays into it too.
yeah, well, you have to do it on different. I mean, you could try to do it on one day, but you're not usually not going to track everything in one day.
One day.
Especially vocals. It's not like you can go change your strings on that or your heads.
Yeah.
Drum heads, you snap one, you put another one on, get back at it. Vocals, it's like, oh, they're shot today. I'm done. We'll come back to it when you know everything's recovered.
Yeah.
Sometimes you push a little too hard and you get strained. So
yeah, and then after, one other thing that made this kind of, because normally when you do like your own song, you just do it, listen to it, and then okay. Well, what we were doing, since we were both involved, you were sending me copies after you would do something, and then basically I'd listen to it, and then I'd say, okay, yeah, that sounds great, and then you keep going.
yeah.
So I know that probably added to the process too.
Well, that's what the process is normally for anybody, really, because you figure if you're a band and you go to a studio and you pay some guy to track you and stuff, once he gets your tracks done and he starts mixing it, a standard is usually they'll give you like one or two. They'll definitely give you a second one. Sometimes they'll give you three, but usually no more than that if they're really good at what they do as far as mixes. They'll go, hey, here's the first mix. What do you think? Give me your notes. You know, you bring this up a little, bring that down a little. Can we add a little effect here or there? And then they go and take those notes. They do that stuff, send that back to the artist. They go, is this good? You know, so that's the standard anyway. So you were basically kind of the artist that you were going, yeah, hey, well, that's a little low. This sounds a little funny. And that, you know, sometimes like we were going back and forth about that, like you had mentioned things and I go, well, we'll fix that in the mix, you know?
Yeah.
That's where you fix some of this stuff. And it's kind of weird because you do stuff and it doesn't sound finished. And it's like, well, yeah, because we have mix it like vocals example.
Yeah.
Vocals get reverb and delay, and then they sound bigger, but you just track them and it's all dry. There's nothing on them. It definitely doesn't sound finished. It's like, well, that kind of sounds a little, you know, empty. Does it? How do you? It's got to get bigger. Well, yeah, that'll in the mix. You add the reverbs, the delays, all that stuff. Your choruses and anything you want to put, any special effects and stuff. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, to tell you the truth, I'm an old drummer, so my ears are shot. I'm like Grandpa Joe here. So whenever you would send me something, I always think, wow, that's awesome. But then you're like, well, let's do it. Tell me if you hear anything. So I was like, okay, well, I got to come up with something. So I would, okay, I think there. Then I tell you, and then that's when you would say like, oh no, well, I'm going to fix that in the mix. So don't worry about that. So
yeah.
Like, oh, okay, cool.
No, but it's good though, because we're keeping each other in check. And if it was up to me, I probably never finish. For the people out there that watch Metalocalypse, yeah, I'm that guy that when I track stuff in here, I'll have a whole song done and then just delete things. Just the vocals are all done and they go, don't like them. That starting over, delete them, get rid of them, start over. I've done that so many times with songs, and you know, you need extra people there to go, no, that sounds good. Stop. You know, so it keeps you in check.
Well, that's one thing I was telling you too, because I've been picking up guitar because I told you, I don't want to be Eddie Van Halen or anything, but I just want to be able to convey my ideas, song ideas to you better, communicate them better.
Yeah.
And then so I've been getting an amp here or there, you know, and with all the settings, as a drummer, I'm like, what the hell is all these knobs? So yeah, you could sit there for days just sitting there playing with the tone.
Yeah.
And not really practice anything.
Yeah, you could sit there. Like I got a Helix, the Helix floor model, and yeah, you sit there for 8 hours trying to route things and mess with the effects and check all the different ones and compare them and all the different amps. Next thing you know, you've done nothing. You haven't played anything. You're just you're just farting around. Sometimes more options are bad.
Yeah,
it's good. But sometimes, yeah, it stifles the creativity. You just don't get to it.
Yeah. So, well, I think gave them a pretty good perspective on what we were doing, like
Yeah.
needs and stuff. So I think that's a good place to kind of end that. I want to bring up right before we do our last segment. I want to bring up we're new on Instagram. So if you guys want to check us out, we're starting to post pictures and stuff on Instagram at Two Bros Music, all one word, spelled out TWOBROSMUSIC. And that's where you find us at Two Bros Music on Instagram. So check that out. And then we're up in I've updated our podcasting. We're up on Spotify, on Amazon, on iHeartRadio, on Deezer, which I've heard it, but I've never listened to it. I guess that's a new music service.
Yeah, I guess.
And there's some other ones that I'm trying to get on, and I'll update as we get those, get the podcast up on those. So, all right, well, let's get into our last segment. We're gonna call this "Turn It Up."
This is about all the crusties that are like, because we're old guys, and this is, you know, that music when you were coming up and you were a teenager or whatever, or in your 20s and going, yeah, back in my day, this is what we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Another word we call it warehouse music, because
Yeah.
we're blue collar, and that's usually you have the radio in the background, and that one song will come up like an AC/DC song or something, and then the guy will go, "Yeah, turn that up."
Turn it up, man. Yeah.
That's
Never heard this song before.
Yeah, you hear it a million times.
40 freaking years. And yeah.
So yeah, so we figured we'd kind of use that as the term, and then we talk about a band that we liked from back in the day. And the first one we're going to start out with is a band from Oakland. It's Y&T, and they were big. Well, they got big in the 80s. They've been around since like the early 70s.
Yeah, they were in the
late
70s.
80s. I mean, late 60s, early 70s. But they originally called Yesterday and Today, and then they didn't take off. When I first got into them, I was already in the 80s, early 80s, and they were already just called Y&T. They just dropped the Yesterday and Today and just with initials. And they had some big hits like, well, their biggest hit actually was one that I wasn't even that fond of. Summertime Girls. They had a video for it.
That was the bigger one. Yeah. I mean, I remember Mean Street.
Yeah, Mean Street. Actually, yeah, Mean Street, I had it on a K-Tel album. I don't know if you guys remember those K-Tel records.
Yeah, you're showing your age. Yeah.
Well, let's turn it up.
Turn it up.
Yeah, so I remember having that track on that K-Tel album. There was like a Deep Purple. There was a bunch of it was like a compilation album that they used to put out. And then I actually seen them live. This is my age again. Back in the day, a Day on the Green, 85 in Oakland at the Oakland Coliseum. And that was a major show. That's when that was one of the shows where Metallica, they were touring on their second album, Ride the Lightning. And I think they didn't headline, but they were like one of the middle bands, but they just like tore it up. And then they were a local band. But then Y&T was on stage, Scorpions were there, Rat. So there's a bunch of, I think Yngwie Malmsteen was there too. So yeah, I'm dating myself, but those guys out there that were there, you know what? I think I still have the ticket stubs too. I saved.
Oh damn!
So I'm that guy.
Yeah, you are that guy. Turned it up.
So anyway, and then another claim to fame is the lead singer, guitarist Dave Manichetti. He went to my high school, so that's when I really I kind of heard about him, and then when I heard that but he was like much older than me. I didn't know him or anything. He, I had gone years after, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, he went to my school, so that's kind of how I got into them. And then they kind of faded away.
That's kind of ironic because you went to high school with the same high school he went to,
Yeah.
And then you were talking about Metallica, Day on the Green. I went to the same high school Cliff Burton went to.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
yeah, and then I took lessons from the same teacher that he took lessons from. But,
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny. It's a funny guy.
So, yeah. So that was a good one, band to start with, this Turn It Up segment. But yeah, check them out, Y&T. They're on all the music streaming services. And from what I read, doing a little research for this segment, is that they're still touring a different lineup though. the other three, because it was a 4-piece and Dave was the lead singer and guitarist. Well, the other three unfortunately passed away.
Yeah, they're all dead now.
Yeah, so he's got the band still going, but he's got some new guys backing him up. And then and he sells wine too, which I didn't know. He's got a winery. So that's kind of his side business. But yeah, so you guys want check them out, Y&T. They have a bunch of hits, metal, early metal. And then it even says in Wikipedia that Lars Ulrich got into music because he heard Dave singing, which I don't know if that's true. Because back with the early Metallica, I hear a bunch of different stories and they can't all be true.
Yeah, I don't know about that. It was Y&T. I mean, they were listening to Diamond Head. And,
yeah, they were listening to more European shit.
Yeah, and was it the new wave of European metal?
And when they started actually down in LA.
Yeah.
So, and Y&T was up in, well, I mean, they were everywhere, I guess, because they had albums and they were signed.
Yeah.
But they were basically in the Bay Area, Oakland. So.
Well, and actually, yeah, for more like background on that, like the Metallica part is Murder in the Front Row. That's a good documentary for anybody that likes watching good music docs. And that's all about thrash. But yeah, Y&T was from up here. They were like that generation just right before like the next guys and the 80s thrash started and stuff.
Yeah.
They were just a little ahead of those guys and a little ahead of Metallica. Metallica was just breaking. And of course, everyone knows they're a monster band now.
Yeah, and I remember back when they started hearing that first demo of Metallica, we were all like, what the hell is this shit? Because it took a little while to get used to the ear. But then once we got into it, it's like everything they put out, we pretty much loved until the 90s.
Yeah.
Well, that's another story, though. But anyway, all right, well, let's wrap this up. Do you want anything else?
No, I think for this episode, we covered a lot of material. So
yeah. So go back and listen to it a couple times and tell your friends.
It's going to get better. We're learning. So
yeah. Little by little.
Bunch of crusty old dudes. Turn it up.
Yeah. So anyway, well, thanks for tuning in and catch us on the next one.